I'm keeping so warm today in my beautiful Basketweave cowl. That's what I'm wearing right now. I love this stitch. I love that you can do the basket weave in a multitude of different ways. And today I'm going to show you how to do that on the knitting loom like this one. This happens to be from Boy. If you don't like that one, you can work with the classic Nifty Knitter 36 peg loom. Both of them have a 36 pegs. They're extra large gauge looms. They're 3/4 of an inch width apart from peg to peg, center peg to center peg. You can work with a 5/8 if you like. As long as you have at least 19 pegs, you can work on this project. It will be a little bit different sized. You need at least 95 yards of yarn. I'm using this Wool in the Gang. This is called Crazy Sexy Wool. I used a little bit over 1 ball. It equals to about 95 yards. So we're going to dive in and get started today on GoodKnit Kisses. Oh, and bonus, you can make a pot holder or a trivet with your extra yarn. This one's actually made with a cotton t-shirt yarn that I had. So we're gonna get started right now, and you can do both of them in this video right now. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. You click down in the description of this video for the link to the free blog pattern. If you want to get it on Ravelry and Etsy, we also have that available to you as well. I am going to use the Boy loom to cast on because it's a little bit dark and I want you to be able to see it really well. Sorry, I picked this color because I love this color to wear. It's just a little bit dark in this video. I understand, so I'm going to use this loom. You can use whatever loom and yarn you're going to work on, but the pattern is written to get the size that I have. A little tip on this yarn here, it doesn't actually say if it's a number 6 or 7 yarn, but the gauge or stitches per inch say that it's 2 stitches per inch on this Crazy Sexy Wool yarn. So you be your best judge on that. All right, let's get our stuff and begin. Let's start by casting on. You need to mark off 19 pegs. Whether you have a starter peg or not, it doesn't matter. I just went ahead and put a little stitch mark over here, and then I counted out to 19 pegs for your 19 stitches to cast on. And we're going to be casting on from this direction all the way over to this direction. So the reason why is because my first row is going to be knit in this direction here. And then my purl rows are going to be worked in this direction here. So whichever way you're comfortable, the right-handed video is going to be purling from right to left, and the left-handed video is going to be purling from left to right. So whichever one you're comfortable with, click down in the video description below to get that handed video. I'm going to be doing a long tail cast on. You can cast on however you like, just end up on this peg over here. Okay, so I'm going to pull out a little bit over 36 inches or 1 yard. And if you want to know about long tail cast on, how much to measure out, just measure out about 3 times the diameter or the width that you want. So I just go 1, 2, 3, and then I need to put my slip knot in. I usually add a little bit for a tail. So let's do that slip knot here. We're just going to wrap it around our finger twice, take the back loop over the front a little bit, and then do it one more time, back loop over the front, over the tip of your finger, and it creates a slip knot. And then come over and place that on our loom. And then my tail yarn is going to be toward me, and my ball yarn is toward the back. The ball yarn always uses a U-wrap knit stitch, and the tail yarn is always E-wrap. I'm going to move this E-wrap over this direction. And we've got our first stitch on here, so go ahead and E-wrap the second stitch, and then U-wrap knit the second stitch with the ball yarn. And I hold on to both of them, and then I just knit that over, and we've casted on our second peg, and then you just keep going. So E-wrap with the tail, U-wrap knit with the ball, knit over, make sure and pull out any extra slack. Okay, so continue casting on until you have 19 stitches. Pause your video and I'll meet you back up for the first row. See you soon. For row 1, we're going to be knitting all stitches in this direction. So all stitches down to this end are going to be a U-wrap knit. So just take your yarn, go around the front of it, all the way to the back in a U shape, knit from the bottom over the top, and move to the next one. If you are working with a smaller gauge loom, I suggest you make sure that you're wrapping nice and loose, and when you come to do the next one, you can kind of hold this yarn to the back when you wrap it, and then knit off to make sure that your stitches aren't too tight, and you can be nice and loose to try and mimic this, this gauge over here. Okay, so keep going, pause your video, and meet me back up for row 2. See you soon. Row 2. Row 2 is going to have a purl stitch, the first 5 stitches. So we put our yarn to the front, put our yarn underneath the first peg, and pull up a loop, take off the old peg or the old loop and put on the new loop and tighten that up. So repeat that 4 times. So we're doing purl stitch next, pull off the old, put on the new, third purl stitch, fourth purl stitch, and fifth purl stitch. Okay, so our next 2 stitches are going to be marked here. I went ahead and took a moment and put a rubber band that's a little bright around these next 2 stitches. So this is 7 stitches in, or actually number 6 and 7 in from this side. So if you want to mark these, it's going to be very helpful. Let me show you my sample to show you why. Because on this sample here, you can see where we have our 5 purl stitches that we just did, and then we have 2 knit stitches that we're going to work. And then we're going to repeat our 5 again, and then have 2 more knit stitches, and then end with 5 purl stitches. And so having these marked pegs are going to be very handy, because we're going to work several garter stitch ridges in these 3 sections here, and then 2 rows of knit stitches here. So that's going to be really helpful, and then you're going to see later on we're going to alternate that. So let's go ahead and do that now. So mark these pegs here, so count 5 in, mark the next 2, then skip 5, and then mark the next 2 with as either 2 stitch markers or 1 rubber band around it, and then you have done it. That's all you need. So go ahead and knit these next 2 stitches that are marked. Pause your video as you need. And so that is your 5 stitches plus the 2 to get 7 stitches for a 7-stitch pattern repeat. It's a 7 plus 5. So we have 7 here and another group of 7 that's going to get repeated, and then we have 5 on the end to complete this look right here. Okay, so go ahead and we're going to continue on with purling 5 and knitting 2, and then we're going to finish by purling 5. So pause your video and I will meet you at the end of that row. See you soon. Now that we've completed rows 1 and 2, we are going to be repeating those 2 rows 3 more times. So you have just completed this first ridge right here. So you worked all the way across, and now you're going to knit across and then do another ridge. So every time you see one of these ridges, it represents 2. So this would be 2, and then you'd be on row 4, 6, and 8. And when we end, you will end on a purl row here. So go ahead and repeat those 2 rows 3 more times, and I will see you back at this point after you have all those ridges. We'll see you soon. All right, you've completed rows 1 through 8, and they should look like this. Okay. And now we're going to work on rows 9 and 10. 9 and 10 are similar in that the row 9, the odd row, is going to be knit across. So go ahead and knit across, and then I'll show you row 10 and what the difference is versus what we just did on the other row 8s on all the all the even rows. Okay, so knit across, pause your video, and I'll see you for row 10. See you soon. Row 10, we are going to knit 5 and then purl 2 on the marked pegs. So we're knitting all unmarked pegs and purling the 2 marked pegs. Okay, so same as before, we're U-wrap knitting across, stop at the marked pegs, and purl those. So I just knit 5, and now I'm going to purl 2. And of course, if you're not going as fast as me, that's okay. Just pause your video. And then after you do those, repeat that one more time, knit 5, purl 2, and then you're going to knit to the end. And then you're going to repeat those 2 rows, the knit row and then this one we just did, one more time. Okay, so it's going to look like this. You're working on this section here. Once you have done that, you've done rows 1 through 12, and that is one full pattern repeat for this basket weave pattern. Now there are different types of basket weave patterns. You can switch them up. This one I made 16 stitches wide and just changed a little bit where these are 4 stitches in between here, made it just a little bit different. Here's one where it's more even, where we have 3s and 3s. I believe this one was 21 wide cast on. So you can make different basket weaves, but that's how this pattern worked. So you're repeating rows 1 through 12 for this, and then if you want to do the trivet, you're going to do rows 1 through 12 one more time, and then you're just going to do rows 1 through 8 and then bind off. So we're going to continue working these. Go ahead and keep repeating rows 1 through 12, and you're going to repeat it a total of 10 times for the cowl. So you're going to have this section repeated 10 times for the loom knit version. If you want it longer or shorter, you can certainly do that, but 12 is going to give you more length, so you might want to do it 10 times. You might want to do it 11, just depends on your yarn and your gauge. And then when we join back up, we will bind off and sew it up together. All right, we'll see you then. All right, I am ready to bind off. I have my knitted length. I have 10 of these repeats of the 12 rows. And just as a reminder, I was working my cast on to show you guys over here, but my knitting was already on this other loom. So I'm just going to leave it on here. You should know how to bind off, but if you don't, let's just work through the first few together. So you should be on this side over here, and I've ended on my row 12, and I'm ready to knit the first 2 stitches. So we're going to do that. 1, 2. You begin binding off just by working those 2 stitches, and then you take your second stitch and you move it on to the first one. Okay, and then I just tighten it up just a little bit, not too tight, just snug, and then knit over the bottom loop over the top, just like that. And we have 1 stitch bound off, so we're going to move our first stitch over to the empty peg. And now that is the only time you knit 2 in a row. Now you're just going to knit the second stitch and move the second to the first, and knit over, bottom loop over the top, and move that stitch over to the empty peg. And that's it. So just continue working all the way down until you have 1 last peg. Pause your video and I will meet you there. Be sure and don't tighten too much in between these stitches, because you want to make sure that your edge is nice and loose. You don't want it super tight. If you have a problem when you normally bind off and it's tight, you can use an E-wrap stitch like this to give it a little bit extra movement here to make sure it's not too tight. So go ahead and finish, and I'll meet you down at the end. See you soon. We're on our last stitch, and I've already knitted off this last one, so just go ahead and knit one more, and we're going to go ahead and cut our tail. If you're working on the potholder or trivet, then you don't need a very long tail to cut, and then you're going to weave that tail in. But if you're going to be sewing up the cowl, like most of us are doing, pull out about another yard and cut that off, and then now you can just pull that whole thing on through and just take it off of your loom. So we're just going to pull that long tail out. And then this tail is going to be used to sew together your two ends. So you're going to make, this is your right side. So you're going to put the wrong sides together. And then you're going to be sewing in with this long tail. This little one right here, go ahead and weave that tail in first. And any other tails that you may have had from adding in another ball of yarn. I had to actually add in a ball of yarn about right here towards the end. And then pause your video, we'll meet back up and I'll show you how to sew this together. See you in a moment. Okay, so I've got my knitting with my yarn on this side over here, and I've just kind of folded it together where the cast on end is next to my bind off end. Go ahead and thread your needle. This is your wide-eyed tapestry needle you should have in your Notions stash. If you don't, you need to get one. All right, so we're gonna be pulling all of this through as we go. Look at the bind off side, or no, I'm sorry, look at the cast on edge, and when you pull back this yarn here, these loops are, you're going to see little V stitches. Okay, so the first one is a little harder to see. You might want to go to the second column where you see the first V stitch, and you can see 1, 2. So follow that over until you see the left and the right little first part of that very first V stitch. Go behind that stitch all the way from the outside toward the end and pull through all your yarn. Okay, so now I'm going to pull that up nice and snug, and I'm going to go down to the bind off edge, and I'm going through this first stitch here. So you can go to the second column to see the first set of V's, and you see this V stitch here. Okay, go to the outside column and do the same thing that you did up here. Just go from the outside of it underneath those 2 stitches and pull through. Okay, and then now we're going to go on top. We're not going underneath at all. We're just going to be putting our needle down through the next stitch, so next to where we went before. You can pull your yarn back to see it and go underneath that next V on the left and right parts of that V there, and go through, pull all your yarn, and basically what it does is it makes a stitch on top. We've made this stitch and this stitch. It's a little bit harder to see, but once you get going in yours, you'll be able to see it. So now you're going to come down to this column down underneath it and catch underneath the legs of the right and left of that V stitch there. So you're just matching up column for column of these rows of knit stitches. You pull it all the way through, and you can see another little stitch is appearing. So just keep going through each one of these stitches and pulling all your slack, and then coming down to the next one and going through again. And that is what your seam should start to look like. And you can pull on your stitches tighter to make sure that you've got a nice good connection. If you're not sure, if you think you've kind of zagged it over a little bit, you can also kind of fudge it and go a half stitch over and get the columns lined up nice. These look like they're actually lined up right, but you can pull on them and undo. Just be real careful and maybe take your needle out and one by one pull those out to get it lined up. So you're just going to continue going all the way across over here, and once you get to the end, weave in your tail, and you are done. And this is what my seam looks like after I've woven in my tails. I hope you enjoyed making your cowl. Be sure and tag me on Instagram when you get yours finished or when you just cast on. I would love to see yours. Comment down below and tell me what your Instagram handle is. All right, we'll see you soon. I want to see your cowls, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.